First, I'd like to thank everyone for braving the weather to come here this morning for this incredibly important event. We're here to recognize all 24 astronauts who have paid the ultimate sacrifice, given their life in the name of human exploration, and especially for those family members who lost their loved ones. 30 years ago at this moment, we were awaiting the launch of Space Shuttle Challenger. We all remember that very, very cold winter day. At the time, we didn't realize there was a lot of debate. Do we launch or not launch? Unfortunately, we did, and we know what happened. Tragedy. But out of that tragedy was born success. The fact that we're right under the Space Shuttle Atlantis here today, the fact that we completed the assembly of the International Space Station, just as we learned from the Apollo 1 accident, both shuttle accidents, rather than cowering and deciding not to quit exploring space, we decided to move forward, and we did so successfully. I'd like to introduce some of the special guests that we have here today that are a part of our ceremony. First, I'd like to introduce a number of board of directors from the Astronaut Memorial Foundation, which was born out of the Challenger accident when Americans realized we had no place to honor and memorialize our astronauts. We would be in front of that memorial here this morning, but unfortunately due to weather, we've had to move inside, but what a great venue to move inside. So I'd like to recognize some of the individuals that are part of our board of directors, astronauts, government officials, NASA officials, and special guests. I'd like to ask everyone to hold their applause until we get through the announcement of all these very, very important people that have taken their time to be with us today. First and foremost, I'd like to recognize our center director here at the Kennedy Space Center, Bob Cabana. I'd like to recognize board member and former center director, Bill Parsons, who's here with us today. We also have with us past chairman of the AMF Board of Directors, Alan Hellman and Lee Solid. Both Alan Hellman and Lee Solid were here from the inception and part of the creation of the Astronaut Memorial Foundation. I'd like to also recognize immediate past chairman and still board member, Kevin Hausstresser. I'd like to recognize Chief Operating Officer Theron Protze and take an opportunity to thank the Delaware North Corporation, who's just been fantastic to work with. What a great job they've done here at the Visitor Center, and we have a wonderful working relationship with them. We have astronauts Eileen Collins, and also Eileen is the chairman of the Astronaut Memorial Foundation. John McBride, who's former chairman of the Astronaut Memorial Foundation. Of course, I've recognized Bob Cabana, who is also an astronaut. Winston Scott, Dan Tanney, Tom Jones, and Norm Thagard. Tom is a board member as well on the Astronaut Memorial Foundation. And finally, and most importantly, I'd like to recognize the astronaut family members who have a very, very special place in our hearts, and it ultimately comes down to them. First and foremost, I'd like to recognize June Scobie Rogers, the widow of Challenger Commander Dick Scobie. Kathy Scobie Fulgham, who's also a board member and daughter of Dick Scobie and June Scobie. Brigadier General Richard Scobie, the son of Dick Scobie. We have Jane Smith Walcott, the widow of Challenger astronaut Michael Smith. Allison Smith Balch, the daughter of Challenger astronaut Michael Smith. Evelyn Husband, the widow of Columbia Commander Rick Husband. Scott McCullough, the son of Challenger astronaut Krista McCullough. Martha Chaffee, the widow of Apollo 1 astronaut Roger Chaffee. Cheryl Chaffee, daughter of astronaut Roger Chaffee, and Cheryl is also a board member, and her mother Martha served with great distinction for a number of years with the Astronaut Memorial Foundation. Lowell Grissom, another former board member and brother of Apollo 1 astronaut Gus Grissom. Paul Resnick and Marty Resnick, first cousins of Challenger astronaut Judy Resnick. I'd like for those family members to stand, and I'd love for us to all give them an applause. thank you so much for being here with us today. As we begin the ceremony, please rise for the presentation of the colors by the Vieira High School Army Junior ROTC, followed by the national anthem sung by the highly acclaimed Voices of Liberty from Walt Disney World. They're kind enough to join us here today.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we're so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night
Please be seated. Please bow your head for the invocation. Heavenly Father, all-powerful, loving, and perfect God, creator of the universe, creator of mankind, you have placed us here in your beautiful and wonderful creation and given us dominion. You've charged us to reach out, be fruitful, multiply, and to share his love. When mankind reaches for the stars, we're following that divine mission of spreading the light of life through all of God's creation. It truly is a divine mission. God, we thank you for giving us this creation and giving us the light of life. We are created in your image and likeness. When we explore, we share your love, we share your light, and we fulfill our purpose. We recognize you and thank you. We pray this in your name. Amen. I'd like to introduce Kathy Scobie-Fulgham, who serves on our board, who chaired the committee that helped make all this happen. It was her guidance that really helped us put this together, which was an amazing, amazing job. She's here to introduce our keynote speaker, Barbara Morgan.
Good morning. It is my great honor to introduce Barbara Morgan. Not only is she a teacher rock star, she's an astronaut and a close friend of our families. As Krista McAuliffe's backup in the Teacher in Space program, Barbara was one of only 10 finalists out of thousands to be chosen to train with the Challenger crew. She worked with and was loved and respected by all 7 members of Challenger's crew. She and her husband Clay were especially close to my mom and dad. Mom and Barbara shared a special bond because they are both teachers. When she was selected as a finalist, my dad went to Washington, D.C. He wanted to tell the finalists about the risk of spaceflight. In spite of that, Barbara and Krista journeyed to Houston to begin their training, demonstrating their courage and embracing the Challenger mission. Following the Challenger accident, Barbara assumed the duties of Teacher in Space designee. She worked with NASA, speaking to educational organizations throughout the country. Then she returned to Idaho to resume her teaching career, although she continued to work with NASA's Education Division. She was selected by NASA as a missions specialist and NASA's first educator and astronaut in 1998. She launched a mission to the International Space Station aboard Endeavour in 2007. Endeavour carried 5,000 pounds of equipment and supplies to the station and returned to Earth with 4,000 pounds of scientific materials to study. She traveled 5.3 million miles in space on that 12-day mission. Barbara retired from NASA in 2008 to become the Distinguished Educator in Residence at Boise State University. Among many other appointments, she serves as a board member for the Challenger Center for Space Science Education, a STEM organization that helped build more than 40 learning centers around the globe and educated more than 4.4 million students. After the devastation of losing her 7 friends and knowing the risk of spaceflight after Challenger, Barbara still wanted to go to space to continue the educational mission that Challenger began. Her bravery is unparalleled. Please help me welcome Barbara Morgan.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Kathy. Thank you, AMF. And I would also like to recognize Challenger Center and all of our Teacher in Space program colleagues who are with us. Dick Scobie, Mike Smith, Ellison Onizuka, Judy Resnick, Ron McNair, Greg Jarvis, Krista McAuliffe. I would like to share some memories, some of what I learned from each of the Challenger crew members, and what I learned from the crew as a team. Our commander, Dick Scobie, was a deep and poetic thinker and a very loving person. He was so modest that even now, it's kind of hard to praise him without thinking I'm embarrassing him. But Dick taught me that a true leader guides more than he commands. A true leader seems to walk beside us rather than ahead of us. And when we arrive at our goal, we realize that he was already there long before us. Dick was there with us even when the training was over for the day. Dick and his family welcomed us as members of their family. Until the wee hours of the morning, we sat with Dick and June on their living room carpet and talked about the wonders of spaceflight and about the wonder of children and how exploration and discovery can motivate those children for the rest of their lives. From our shuttle pilot, Mike Smith, I learned that a true leader leads by trusting the people he works with. Mike took me on my first T-38 flights, and I have to say they were the most exciting flights I had ever had in my life. He showed me how to fly in formation, he showed me how to do barrel rolls, lazy eights, and then he told me it was my turn. Mike said, push the stick. And when I asked which way, he said, whichever way you want, push the stick. Mike had a lot more confidence in me than I had in myself. And with his confidence, I flew that T-38, taking it in long sweeping arcs and barrel rolls high over the Gulf of Mexico. Mike's trust in me set me free. And of course, Mike also had his hand on the stick the whole time. From Judy Resnick, I learned balance. A leader does not have to be all things at once. Judy served as flight engineer on Challenger. She sat right behind and between Dick and Mike, and she monitored everything that they did. Check, check, reminder, recheck. She was always on top of every situation. On the job, Judy was all concentration. And off the job, Judy was a lot of fun, and she was a great friend. From El Onizuka, I learned that a leader leads by learning and by allowing others to learn alongside him. El invited Krista and me to some of his shuttle systems classes so that we could see how he learned, so that we could learn what he learned. Krista and I did not want to get in El's way, so when we got in the simulator, we stood way in the back. But El said, come right up here, and he made us stand right beside him and watch. El and his trainer went through a series of malfunction exercises, and then El told us it was our turn. Take his place, find the problems, and fix them. El was also the funny one on the crew, even dressed in his EMU or his very bulky spacewalking suit, getting ready to train in the deep water of the WET-F pool down at the Johnson Space Center. El could do a great imitation poolside of Godzilla. El's humor really helped the team. Ron McNair taught me faith, strong faith, faith in a higher being, and how strong faith creates faith in oneself and in others. Ron showed me how to be accepting of all others. He showed me that a leader leads by caring, and that one way to show you care is to learn about the people that you lead. So Ron talked to Krista and me about our homes, our families. He asked us about our schools. He was particularly interested in our students, and he asked about our other interests. Ron also spent time with the students whose experiments he was going to be conducting on orbit. He treated those students' experiments as professionally as he treated every experiment on that mission. From Greg Jarvis, I learned that no matter how many times you face disappointment, you keep going until you reach your goal. Greg taught me that a leader leads by example, and Greg set a great example for the entire crew. Because of scheduling reasons, Greg had been bumped several times from earlier missions, and once he was bumped just 1 month before his crew was scheduled to launch. But that didn't matter to Greg. Greg joined the Challenger crew, bright, eager, and very excited to work with everyone. He became a valuable team member immediately. He helped the crew both technically and psychologically. And as soon as Greg appeared, it was obvious that he would make the flight more successful. From Krista McAuliffe, I learned to look for the best in all situations and all people. She taught me to not worry about what is not important, and at the same time to work harder at what is important. What was important to Krista? People and their dignity. Her classroom was based on mutual respect. She taught her students to respect themselves too, and she taught them to do the very best that they could do and to stay true to their inner selves. Krista stayed true to herself and to the teaching profession. Before the Challenger launch, Krista had much to do. She was training for spaceflight, she was preparing her space lessons, she was working with the media, and much, much more. But Krista was also still working with her students. And up through the last day, she made time in crew quarters here at KSC to write college recommendations for some of her students. At a time when many people would think only of the impending launch, Krista was taking care of a teacher's business. And now here is what I learned from the crew together. And it is also what I learned and what I still learn from the crew's families. It is this: courage is contagious. Courage is shared. Courage is much more than bravery and boldness, because courage lives in the heart. Once you weigh the risk, and once you decide that to explore and to discover are worth the risk, then you can dream, you can plan, and you can build. And then you train, and you train, and you train, and you train. So that when the crew launches, they launch ready, with happy hearts, thankful for the opportunity to represent America, happy to represent history and all of humankind as humankind reaches for the stars. The Challenger crew were wonderful, wonderful people, wonderful human beings, and they were very much like all of you here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. And as you know, Barbara was the backup, Krista McAuliffe, and she flew. We kept that dream alive. And of course, one of the many things that made that Challenger accident so poignant was the fact the first civilian to ever fly, and NASA chose a teacher to be that first, because we know by touching the young, we affect the next generation. And we have with us today a large contingent. I asked them to wave their hands, the finalists for the Teacher in Space program. Please stand. They joined us here today. We wanted them to be a part of this ceremony because they were part of that process to select a teacher. And I also want to thank the great crowd that we have here, those who chose to come and visit the Space Center. I encourage you, go to your local Challenger Center. June Scobie has created over 50 nationwide. That's a part of keeping the dream alive as well and reaching out to the young. And what we do here with Delaware North, here at the Kennedy Space Center, is to reach the young, the future generation. So thank you for being here. I'd like to next introduce Evelyn Husband-Thompson. Evelyn is here to introduce our next performer, a nationally known, top-ranked performer who also has got the space bug. He's a true believer. Evelyn is the widow of the commander of the Space Shuttle Columbia flight, Rick husband. Evelyn, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Well, today it's a privilege for me to introduce a dear friend. We met in the middle of the night almost 6 years ago here at Kennedy Space Center in early February, waiting for the launch of STS-130. Brandon Heath was a special guest of crew member Terry Virts. The first attempt at 4:39 a.m. was scrubbed due to low clouds. So for the next 24 hours, when we weren't trying to catch a nap, we got to know Brandon. We were already fans, but now we became friends. Brandon has many nominations and awards, including an Emmy, the GMA Dove Award Best New Artist, Male Vocalist of the Year for 2 years in a row, plus multiple Grammy nominations and Songwriter of the Year from BMI, with 4 #1 hit singles, including Give Me Your Eyes. Last summer, the Challenger and Columbia families opened the Forever Remembered exhibit behind me. Brandon wrote and performed a beautiful song for us titled Out There for the event, and he will be performing it again today for us. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my dear friend, Brandon Heath.
Thank you, Evelyn. I do remember those wee hours of the morning waiting for a shuttle to take off, and it was exciting to eat beans and cornbread after we saw STS-130 take off into the clouds. I never imagined as a young boy getting to see something like that so close in range, but even more, getting to know a family member or family members and really understanding not only the heroes, but the real heroes are the families who stay behind and are praying for their family members every day as they're living out their dreams in space. I was 7 years old, sitting on the foot of the bed of my mom's bed. She was folding laundry. I was homesick from school that day, and I watched the Challenger take off. We had been talking a lot about Krista McAuliffe at school. And you may remember how inspired so many teachers were. I can remember the buzz that was going around my school, even as a second grader. But I watched at the foot of the bed, and as you can imagine, I had questions of why it didn't make it into space. Some brave people lost their lives that day, but something was born in me. And as Thad said, I have a bug for space. And as an artist, as a songwriter, we look for things to inspire us. And I can speak for a lot of people around the country and around the world that we need to keep exploring, especially for us artists who need inspiration, even to write music. So thank you to all those who continue to reach for the stars and beyond. And it's my honor to present this song that I wrote for this occasion. Looking at the night, some will just see stars, others see an invitation, a map into the dark, where the sunrise paints the sky and everything is new. If I listen close enough, I hear the voice that once called you. Out there, somewhere in between a mystery and a dream, I feel you there. I swear there's no limit to how far our love can go. Out there, out there. dance beneath the shadows and the light. You packed up all your childhood dreams and went looking for what might be out there, somewhere in between a mystery and a dream. I feel you there. I swear there's no limit to how far a love can go out there. On where we've been, past what we know, faster and farther than fear ever goes. That's something to prove, that reach for the truth, just far enough to be changed by the view that's out there. Looking at the night, some will just see stars, but others see an invitation, a map into the dark.
Thank you, Brandon. That was wonderful. I'd like to next introduce our chairman of the Astronaut Memorial Foundation, astronaut, shuttle commander, leader, trendsetter, Eileen Collins.
Thank you, Thad. Well, it is my pleasure today to introduce to you our next speaker. He is a former NASA astronaut and veteran of 4 space shuttle missions. He served as pilot on 2 flights and mission commander on STS-65 and 88. He was the deputy director of the Johnson Space Center and then director of the Stennis Space Center. Currently, he's the director here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. In this role, he manages all NASA facilities and activities at the spaceport, including the team of civil service and contractor employees that operate the many space missions and programs here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bob Cabana.
Well, good morning and welcome to our Day of Remembrance, where we pause to remember the crews of Apollo 1, Challenger, and Columbia, and to embrace the lessons learned from those incidents that they never happen again in the future. This is even more critical today as we embark on a new era of human spaceflight, developing commercial vehicles that will take us to the International Space Station and the Orion vehicle that will one day take us to Mars. It's hard to believe that it's been 30 years since we lost Challenger and her crew. Those of us that were old enough to remember can probably tell you exactly where we were and what we were doing that morning, January 28, 1986. Much like the assassination of President Kennedy, the landing of Apollo 11 on the moon, and the attacks of September 11th, it was a defining moment in our history. I was a newly selected astronaut candidate with 7 months of training under my belt, taking a class in one of the single systems trainers at the Johnson Space Center, learning the OMS RCS systems on the orbiter. When our class was interrupted to tell us what had happened, it was sheer disbelief and an unwillingness to accept that we had really lost the vehicle and the crew. Surely they had aborted, the crew was okay. But watching it over and over again on TV, reality set in, and it was a really bad day. As an astronaut candidate, there were 5 of us in my class that had an office next door to the 51L Challenger crew. And one of my fondest memories is of El Anazuka when I came in one Saturday morning. Now you got to remember, there's a hierarchy in the astronaut office, and astronaut candidates are like here, and an assigned crew a few months from launch is like up here. But early on, El made me feel welcome. That Saturday morning, he took time from his busy schedule to talk with me, offering me help getting settled in the office and in the community. He even offered his garage and his tools if I needed to fix my car, knowing how hard it is when you move into a new place, and he even offered me his help, and that's a memory that I'll treasure forever. Once we accepted the loss, the long process of understanding how it happened and how we were to return to flight began. As we recovered the vehicle from the sea, the story started coming together. Seeing the pieces of the crew compartment laid out on the cement in the open at KSC and recording the switch positions was a very sobering task. It's no way to bring an orbiter home, nor was this to be the last time that we would have to do this. We learned many lessons from the loss of Challenger, and the vehicle that returned to flight 2.5 years later may have looked the same, but it had hundreds of changes, making it safer and more reliable. The Challenger crew will forever be young and never forgotten on the mirror outside and in forever remembered behind me. Their legacy is the Challenger Center and an inspiration that motivates our children to learn, to aspire to careers in math, science, and engineering. They've shown us that exploration is not without risk, that we can learn from our mistakes and be better for them in the end. They continue to motivate us to explore and to never quit just because it's hard. We are better for having known them. They are a part of us forever, and we will never let them down. We stand on the shoulders of giants. In the crews of Apollo 1, Challenger, and Columbia urge us forward. We will continue to strive to be better, to rise from our mistakes, to reach out beyond our known limits, to explore beyond our home planet, and to expand our knowledge of our universe. Thank you.
Thank you, Center Director Caban, and thank you for doing such a wonderful job and a very difficult time when we were phasing out the shuttle and we were able to fly out that mission in the most remarkable way. I think it's one thing that sets us apart to be Americans. I'd like to take this moment to recognize the founder of the Astronaut Memorial Foundation, Alan Hellman, who's here. I mentioned earlier that when we had this horrific event, we realized we had no place, no resources to memorialize our astronauts, to help the families, to keep the dream alive. And Alan had the vision of a license tag, the first specialty license tag in the country, that he worked with some Disney Imagineers. I think it's appropriate that we have the Voices of Freedom here from Disney World. Was a Disney Imagineer, had the concept of a tag with a shuttle on it, and the Florida legislature just within months passed it and generated huge sales. And all of you that are here are Florida residents. If you haven't got your Challenger tag, get it. This is what helps us do things like this. You know, you wonder, what is it that makes us explore space? And I tell you, I believe it's love. As I mentioned, God's love. It's love for our planet. Space has probably done more to preserve and protect our planet through NASA missions. Space is about finding life in the universe and about spreading life throughout the universe. The power of life, the light of life, the love of life, and love for one another. It's a mission of love. And I'd like to introduce Brandon Heath again to sing a song that I think is so appropriate. Love never fails, and we will never fail to continue to spread love throughout the universe.
Love is not proud. Love does not boast. Love, after all, matters the most. Love does not run. Love does not hide. Love does not keep locked inside. Love is a river that flows through, and love never fails you. Love will sustain, love will provide, love will not cease at the end of time. Love will protect, love always hopes, and love still believes when you don't. Love is the arms that are holding you, and love never fails you. When my heart won't make a sound, when I can't turn back around, and the sky is falling down, nothing is greater than this, greater than this. 'Cause love is right here, love is alive, love is the way, the truth, the life. Love is a river that flows through. Love is the arms that are holding you. Love is a place you will fly to. 'Cause love never fails you.
Thank you, Brandon. It's now my honor to introduce astronaut John McBride. John McBride has been very active nationally, former president of the Association of Space Explorers. He works here with the astronaut program here at Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex, former chairman of the Astronaut Memorial Foundation. John?
Thank you, folks, for all the beautiful music. It's really an enhancement for the whole show. I looked around. We missed one astronaut, if I could. First and only Brazilian came all the way up here to be with us today, Marcos Pontes. Thank you, sir. Exactly 30 years ago, almost to this minute, I and my crew were summoned out of the shuttle training facility, our motion-based simulator, to come up and watch the launch. And obviously about 5 minutes after we got there, our whole lives changed. We lost that challenging 7 wonderful people. I'm going to have the honor of reading the names of all of our 24 fallen comrades out on the mirror. Too bad we're not out there today. Mother Nature didn't cooperate too much with the weather. But if you would, please lower your heads for a few moments, and as I read these names, send them a little bit of positive energy, if you would. Theodore C. Freeman, Charles A. Bassett II, Elliot M. C. Jr., Clifton C. Williams, Jr., Virgil Gus Grissom, Edward H. White II, Roger B. Chaffee, Michael J. Adams, Robert H. Lawrence, Jr., Francis Dick Scobie, Michael J. Smith, Judith A. Resnick, Ellison S. Onizuka, Ronald E. McNair, Gregory B. Jarvis, S. Krista McAuliffe, Manly L. Sonny Carter, Jr., Rick D. Husband, William C. McCool, Michael P. Anderson, Kalpana Chawla, David M. Brown, Laura Clark, my friend from Israel, Ilan Raymond. Thank you very much.
You know, a great honor of this job is meeting and getting to know a lot of astronauts. And one thing that I've found that's so unique is their compassion for each other and for society, their ability to love. I guess that makes sense if you're going to send 4 or 5, 6 crew members to Mars on a 2.5-year mission. You got to be able to get along with people, don't you, and love people. It's a very, very special group, very special group. I'd like to, again, recognize Voices of Liberty that will perform.
Spread your golden wings, sail on freedom's wind, cross the sky. Great bird, with your golden dreams, flying high.
Dreams aloft in the rain, spirit free, soaring through the clouds of time, America. Dreaming now, dreaming the promised night.
This concludes our ceremony, but we're inviting everyone to go out to the memorial to lay a wreath. Would like to ask that everyone remain seated while the first 3 rows exit to go out to the Space Mirror Memorial for a wreath laying. We were going to have a flyover. Missing Man Formation, the Florida National Guard was so kind to send 4 F-15s, but unfortunately, because of the weather, I'd like to give a special thanks to John McBride for all of his hard work to make that happen. I tell him we will take a rain. We'll take a rain check on that one. Okay, then I'd like to ask the first 3 rows to walk out to the memorial.